Meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In absence of our clerk, is someone willing to serve as temporary clerk? Is that a volunteer, Trustee Lay?
That is a volunteer.
Is that a motion?
I nominate Trustee Lay as temporary clerk.
Support.
A motion by Thering, support by Rogers. Any discussion?
Love it.
Anybody else want to throw their hat in the ring? All in favor of Trustee Lay being acting clerk, excuse me, till our clerk arrives, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you for serving again.
Thank you. I'll roll. Is that what you want me to do now?
Yeah, roll call would be
Okay.
great.
Supervisor Milky.
Here.
Treasurer Rogers.
Here.
Trustee Brown.
Here.
Trustee Lannon.
Here.
Trustee Lay is here. Trustee Thering.
Here.
Clerk Cody is excused.
Thank you very much. We have an agenda in front of us. I'm happy to entertain motions on that.
Move to support approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion by Rogers, support by Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to presentations. This is our first look at the fiscal year 2026 budget recommendation from the staff. Hope everybody got their booklets. And Mr. Stuhldreher, I'm assuming you would like to speak on this.
Yes, I would for just a few minutes. Thank you and good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I do see that you all have your books, and I'm assuming yours is on your computer. And we do have a few new folks here this time around, so I just want to take a minute and go over the format of the book. Whether it's an electronic copy or a hard copy, it's all the same. When you open it up, the first thing you'll see is a several page transmittal memo that is touching on the highlights of each of the funds that are included in the budget. Following the transmittal memo, you'll see the budget. It's 2 pages long, presented at the departmental level. We end up approving the budget at the departmental level when we do the appropriations, not the line item level. And then you get into the tabs. There's a tab with for each of the funds that you're going to be considering, and there's 8 of them. The general fund, fire fund, special assessment fund, EDA operating, West DDA operating, a 2% grant fund via the tribe, and then a sewer and water fund. So there's 8 funds that'll eventually need to be approved. There is, on the first page of the transmittal, some calendaring. Later tonight, we're going to be asking the board to set a public hearing for the budget for October 22nd. And according to this calendar, we could have the budget approved at the November 12th Board of Trustee meeting, which would get it out of the way before all the holidays and that kind of thing. At the back of the book, there's a tab that is that's labeled Other Information, and that's where you'll find the recommended fee schedule, the personnel cost summary, which lists all the positions that we're recommending to be funded this year, some long-term projections for the general fund, fire, east and west DDA, and then some historical information, graphs on taxable value, history of state shared revenue, water and sewer working capital, which is generally, you can generally equate that to fund balance in the general fund. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar. You'll also see in this section a bit of capital improvement, a bit of a capital improvement plan that I know the board's interested in seeing. This is under development. We've seen this kind of thing in prior budgets, but we're working towards a much more fulsome capital improvement plan that then could be presented to you at some during 2026. There's also a draft copy of the resolution that you'll end up acting on at possibly your November 12th meeting. All the reports in the book are from our accounting software system. They're all set up the same. You'll see general ledger numbers, a description of that account, columns that the first column is the 2024 actual, just to give you a kind of a place to set your bearings. How does this recommended budget compare to 2024 actuals? And then you'll see a column for the 2025 amended budget, the activity year to date, our projected year-end activity, and then the recommended budget. Once you get into the detail, you'll also see totals by department and then totals by fund, and then you'd be going to the next tab to see another fund. And at the end of the fund information, for instance, the general fund, very last page of the general fund will have information on the fund balance that we're projecting to have at year-end 2025. Then we have our recommended budget, and then the estimated FY26 year-end fund balance. So that's kind of how the book is set up. The focus of this budget recommendation continues to be on moving all our ends forward. If you see something in the budget that you don't think is working towards the ends that are in our policy, then they ought to be called out. I don't think you'd see anything like that. This recommendation is the result of input from the board over the past year or more. The department directors make budget requests that come into me. I review those with finance staff and then department directors so that I can understand what they're asking for. And then if I have any changes, that's what ends up being displayed in the column that says recommended budget. So that's the township manager's recommended budget. Unless there's any questions at this point, I'll just move into some highlights of the general fund. Our millage remains at 1 mil for the operations. This is the general fund. Total appropriations, which is the expense side of the budget, $3.359 million. Once you look at the detail, you'll see that that's not too far off from prior years, as long as you keep in mind that we've had ARPA money over the last couple of years, so that's inflated some of the revenues and expenses. You see that starting to phase out as we've spent all that money. There are no wage increases that are part of this budget. We have not begun yet our negotiations with the collective bargaining units, and so the salaries are going to be the same as what were in the 2025 budget. That becomes important because once we have those contracts ratified and approved by the board, we'll need to do a budget amendment, because that would change the wages and the benefit information in the budget, which would then have an impact on the fund balance. So you won't see any of those in this budget. State shared revenue, at the time we put this together, we're projecting $1.3 million, a little bit of change. It's a slight increase from our 2025 year-end projections, and it's you can compare that to 24 actual of 1.309 million. The state budget was approved just in the last few days. That had some rather significant impact on municipal governments in the state shared revenue area. And for the township, that primarily is, that impact is going to be the result of the sales tax that we all currently pay on fuel at the pump has been eliminated, and that sales tax revenue was part of the constitutional share of state shared revenue that was flowing to the local units. So statewide, there'll be a large reduction in sales tax revenue, which impacts our state shared revenue line item. You may hear in the press and other places that it should be a wash for local governments, because what they did is almost one for one. They replaced the sales tax at the pump with a gasoline wholesale tax, which is not a sales tax. And that wholesale gas tax goes into the transportation fund, commonly referred to as Act 51 monies. Cities, villages, counties receive Act 51 money for their roads. Townships do not, because we don't own the roads. County Commission will see an increase in Act 51 revenues. But there's, the selling point was we reduced the sales tax at the pump on gas, create revenue for Act 51 monies. So if you're a city like Mount Pleasant, it should be generally a wash, except for how you're able to spend it. But money coming in total is about a wash. But that's not true for townships, because we don't own our roads and we don't receive Act 51 money. Does that make sense to everybody? Interest income is a big chunk of our money. 380,000 is projected for 2026. Interest rates have been going down. In FY24, we received just under $400,000. And that's likely to continue going down for a couple of years anyways, because of the economic environment out there. There is a request for funding the position of what's called the assessing / general property tax specialist position. That position has been on our books as an allocated position for 10 years, but in the last several years we have not funded it. If you go back far enough, we had an assessor, Pat Priest, and then we had this second position. It was occupied by Miss Jane Chaffee, and then she retired, and I chose not to fund that. The assessor at the time, that's when we started bringing in some temporary help for the assessor. And then Pat retired. Then we went through a period of time where we were kind of bouncing between W-2 assessors and contracted assessors. So this year and the last couple of years, we've had our own W-2 assessor, but we have not not asked for the funding for the assessing general property tax specialist. And we've tried to create the resource for the assessor through temporary help. You've seen different people in and out, and that's become kind of chaotic. And then I've had enough time now to kind of recognize that the assessing function, to do it reasonably well, really requires two people that are both full-time under the direction of, right now, the assessor reports to me. This funded position, I don't want to call it a new position because it's been a position on our books, it's just been unfunded. And that person would then report to the assessor. You'll see that position in the personnel cost summary and the other information. It is incorporated in all the assessor's department detailed budget that you'd see under the general fund tab. We are, while we haven't changed the cost share between the employer and the employee on benefits, healthcare benefit primarily, that remains at 12% employee, 88% employer. That's not changed because we haven't negotiated a change there yet. But this budget does include a projected increase of 12% in healthcare expenses. So that part is in this budget, just not any change in the cost share allocation. 5% increase on vision and 5% increase in dental benefits. We did just receive a preliminary, just earlier this week, a preliminary look at the increases in our healthcare benefit, and I want to say the number was 13.9, something like that. We've incorporated 12% of that 13.9 in here, but probably not all of the increase yet, but the vast majority we haven't included in here. And those are percentages that we're seeing. I had lunch today with the city manager from Alma and the city manager from Mount Pleasant, and they're all seeing low double-digit increases as well. We have funding for the annual cleanup day in the budget. The election department is, once you get into the detail, that's recommended budget considerably more than what was in the FY25 budget. We didn't have much in the way of elections in FY25, but we are going to have 3 of them in FY26, one of which is the general election. So we'll just be spending a lot more money on elections this year. If you go back a few years, you'll see similar numbers. It's the election department kind of goes up and down with a fair amount of swing to it, depending on how many elections and what the elections are in a given year. Also in the election department is funding for 3 new laptop/poll books. The equipment we have now doesn't have the internal wherewithal, I guess, to allow for a Windows 11, to be updated to Windows 11. The machine just isn't big enough and strong enough and fast enough, however they gauge that stuff. So we do have some funding for some new computers in the clerk's office that end up being their poll books. We have some funding for park improvements in the general fund. We're looking at replacing drinking fountains with water bottle refill fountains at both parks. And we're going to do some minor plumbing replacement, faucets, those kind of things at the sinks in some of the bathrooms. We are at Jamison Hall looking to put in an outdoor fitness court. I might have mentioned this. Similar to what's at McDonald, but smaller. And we have money budgeted for that in the general fund. We'll see money budgeted for that in the EDA fund, because Jameson's located in the EDA district. And then we have already been awarded a $60,000 grant from the National Fitness Campaign, and we have a grant application in for the 2% program for this project as well. Funding, at least from a budgetary point of view, over $800,000. Sidewalk, pathway projects, same story on those as you're used to hearing. 200,000 if we can get some easements down Pickard from Lincoln to Ashland. 60,000 if we're able to do that for the intersection and the ramps here at Pickard and Lincoln. There are gaps along Bluegrass and Broomfield. $200,000 is available there. And then we also have $375,000, which is actually sourced as ARPA monies for our contribution to the pathway in partnership with the city and some others going up. I think it's Harris/Crawford. Going up north to Mission Creek Park. It'll be on the east side along the Coyne property. And that pathway would then also connect into the city's pathway that then opens up to the whole system. 325 budgeted for contributions to the road commission. Maybe we won't need as much of that since they're getting more money, but I don't know how successful that would be. But money for gravel road improvements, which also includes some ditch maintenance, brine application, and in partnership with the road commission, refurbishing Lincoln Road from Pickard to River Road. And that would be a 3-way cost share, ourselves, road commission, and we have a similar amount as a 2% grant application. It's about a $900,000 project, and 1/3 of it from each of those parties. That would then produce a projected year-end fund balance of $7,275,000, which is 216% of the 2026 recommended appropriations. So it ends up being similar to levels that you've seen in the last couple of years, keeping in mind that would be drawn down more once we're done with collective bargaining. And I'm just providing a high-level overview. I'll go on to the fire fund. Anybody has any questions now or in the meantime, or at the end, feel free to ask them. In my mind, there's plenty of additional time, board meetings, special sessions if you want, depending on how much you want to dive into any of the details. But if there are no questions at this point, I'll just move to the fire fund. That millage remains at 2.25 mils, which is where it's been since the last vote on this millage. I want to say that it's FY 2028, where there'll be another ballot question to renew the fire millage. So that's only a couple years out. The fire fund receives its revenue from that millage, and then also the east and west contribute to the fire fund. We'll get to their respective amounts, but in total, those two funds contribute about $158,000 to the fire fund. The FY 26 fire protection contract amount to the city is $835,000. That's a 3.7% increase from the FY 25 amount. So there's total appropriations of $849,000 of the fire fund, other than the contract to the for the fire service. This fund is accumulating monies, cash, to pay for a new fire truck in approximately 15 years from now. So you'll see a fund balance in the fire fund of almost $2 million. But again, that's kind of earmarked for the fire truck. The special assessment fund, we did have I think in FY 25, one or two paving special assessments that were approved. That might have been 24, where we had a lot of them. We're starting off the year with a little over $300,000 in fund balance in that fund, and that's available if the citizens come forward with a citizen-initiated petition to do a paving project in their subdivision. That money is available to cash flow that project, pay the vendor, the contractor, and then the special assessment fund recoups fronting the money via the annual installment payment. Some folks choose to pay on installments, others pay the whole thing right up front. EDA operating. This fund is it gets almost all of its revenue from tax increments. Those are tax revenues that are captured from the various taxing units, primarily the county and Union Township, and they go to the east and west DDA funds. For the east, the appropriation, $1,845,000. Their share of what's being transferred to the fire fund is $87,000. All the normal services that are provided, lawn mowing, down, picker, landscape maintenance, holiday lighting, banners, snow plowing, all that, all those normal programs, there's no change in those programs, maybe a little change in the budgeted amounts just due to natural cost increases. We continue to have $40,000 budgeted in the East Fund to offer the grant program that they created a couple years ago. We've had at least one, maybe two awards out of that. One that I can specifically remember because I was there when they received the money. $10,000 for some new seasonal gateway signs that are in front of one's in front of one of the hotels on Pickard, right by the interchange. They exist on both sides of the interchange. We like to swap those up. We have seasonal banners that go up 3 or 4 times a year, but then every once in a while we like to create a whole new set of seasonal banners just so it doesn't get too old. We have $200,000 budgeted to help plan for reconstruction of that whole Packard Corporate Airport Road area up there into Class A roads. Hopefully we'll be able to get some design work done, and all that would be done to the road commission standards, and then maybe we can then present that to the road commission. Here's a design to meet your standards. If we figure out how to build it, maybe with road commission's contributions, then we would have a nice, some nice industrial property up there. If we can get the right road network up there, it would really help things. But it's their road, so it's designed to their standards. They also then would have to take action to accept that road formally into their inventory. But we do have some money budgeted for that planning. We're looking to put in a sidewalk that would connect on Honey Bear Lane. We have a park, that little pocket park, that ends up connecting 2 neighborhoods back over in that area, and we'd like to do a little bit of improvement on lighting and a sidewalk that would connect those 2 neighborhoods, if you will. Also in the EDA budget is $400,000 for potential land assembly. We never know what opportunities may come up, but we're getting more and more active in purchasing land for development purposes. If you can control the land, you're ahead of the game. They are planning on replacing the underground irrigation system along Pickard that was taken out when that road was reconstructed. $450,000 is budgeted for that, and then $40,000 the Enterprise, what's called the Enterprise Industrial Park off Pickard. They got a crappy looking sign up there. We'd like to take that down and replace it with a nicer sign that is an entrance into that industrial park, probably an electronic type of sign. And then, as I mentioned, there was funding in the EDA budget to contribute to the outdoor fitness court at Jameson Park, and then also money, as I mentioned, for lighting along that sidewalk that connects the 2 streets. So on a net basis, net revenue and expenses for the East EDA fund is a negative $1,085,000. So that's a drawdown in fund balance, which is fine. They would still be left with $1.25 million fund balance, and it's important that the EDA spend their money, or the state's gonna, the state doesn't like it when these operations aren't spending their money. So we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. I will note that the EDA budget is scheduled for their review and approval at their October 21st meeting, and their action would be to approve the budget with any changes they may have, along with a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for you all to approve their budgets. You don't have to. The final authority on the approval of the East and West EDA rests with the Board of Trustees. But they're their own entity. So they can approve their budget. They need to recommend something to you all, and then you all have the final say on both the East and West budgets. West EDA appropriations of $550,000. Again, they'd be contributing to some of the gateway signage and banners. They also have $40,000 for a grant program. There's funding of $175,000 to extend the sidewalk on Bradley from Pickard up to the school, whatever, I don't know if that's a middle school or an elementary. But as you go north to the school, you are still in the West EDA. And so we can appropriately spend that money. We were hoping to get that done this year, but we had some trouble. We had to get an easement from the school. And getting the easement ultimately is not the issue, it's just getting the wheels to turn. So on a net basis, the West EDA fund is a negative $39,000. The fiscal year 26 projected year-end fund balance in the West is $1,958,000. And we do have $225,000 budgeted in the West EDA to begin some planning and maybe even some actual work to improve M20, how nice Pickard looks in the township, decorative street lights and those kind of things. Planners were looking to spruce up M20 within the West EDA area as well. In the 2% grant fund, we're projecting, right now there's a fund balance of about $50,000, give or take. That is a result of interest earnings on prior contributions into that fund from 2% awards, and then also some residual money if an award for something was $100,000 and it cost $95,000. Actually, the $5,000 still sitting in this fund. But if we, there's a spring and a fall 2% grant award program, and if we're awarded anything, it comes into this fund, and then whatever fund the work is going to be done out of, sometimes it's the water fund, sometimes it's the general fund, it ends up getting transferred out of this 2% fund into the respective fund where the work is going to occur. Sewer fund appropriations, a little over $5 million. There is a rate increase being recommended of 5.1% for the sewer fund. That is basically to pay for continued investments in the system, as well as covering inflationary increases for things like salary and other expenses that, you know, chemicals, that kind of thing. It's also helps fund the capital maintenance that we do a lot of. There's an item in the consent agenda later for continued capital maintenance, but for FY26, $175,000 for manhole, wet well refurbishing and repairs, $110,000 for lift station maintenance and repairs. What I might consider new capital is pump station number 5, pretty much a complete replacement of that. Reaches the end of its useful life, $620,000 there. You may have recalled you approved a fine screening component at the sewer plant a month or two ago. That work will be actually being done in 2026. So we budgeted money for that in FY26. Projected year-end net assets, $15.4 million. That's net assets. That also includes the physical capital as well as the financial capital on the balance sheet. The water operation, the water fund, 5.762 appropriation. Again, there's a usage rate increase of 5%. In both these, the water and the sewer, comport with the rate track that was put in place the last time we did a cost of service study back in 2017. So this is continuing basically those same levels since then. We are having a new study done in FY26. It's budgeted in half the water, half the sewer. We refer to it as a cost of service study, and that's where we take a good hard look into the current finances, future capital, funding, capital needs, and then we would develop a new rate track at that point based on that activity. $45,000 is budgeted to continue the lead and copper inventory program that we have going on right now. Also continuing the cross-connection control program. $30,000 budgeted here. Be a similar amount in the sewer fund for the cost of service study. And then in the water, what will, and this is, I call all this new capital, but we'll be spending down the rest of that $10.9 million grant on the water improvements that we've been working on the last couple of years. We've spent a little over $5 million so far, and the rest will be spent in FY26. All those programs will be wrapped up by the end of the year. You may recall that they've divided those into 4 divisions. One is the new well, number 12. It's over there off Business 127 on your way out of town. New transmission line from the well over to the treatment plant. Upgrades and expansion of the treatment plant on Isabella. And then lead service line and lead hydrant head replacements is part of that program. So we're projecting that year-end net assets in the water fund would be just under $14 million. So that covers the 8 funds. It's the primarily the rest of the budget is the resources needed to effectuate these high-level items that I've just described, salaries. The only change in staffing level anywhere in the organization is the recommendation for the assessing position that exists in the general fund. As it relates to fees, there's no building or land use fee changes being recommended. They would be the same as in FY25. The only water and sewer fee, or water and sewer changes would be in the usage rates. There are no changes recommended in any of the other water sewer related fees, hookups, charges for bounce checks or charges to go turn on and off water. None of those fees are being recommended to change. I think I will jump over there just for a second. On the fee schedule, if there are no strikeouts or additions with different colored ink, there's no changes to the fee schedule. And so you'll only see that in the water and sewer section, and within that, not all of those fees are changing. No change to the pavilion rentals or hall rentals, anything like that. You be easier when you get to this on your own, but just for instance, the general fund long-term projections, we're projecting to end 2025 at a 252% fund balance. FY26 draws that down a bit to 214%. And if there were no change in operations, and we just played all this out for the next 10 years, it'd still be at a 69% projected year-end fund balance. So I think that is it for my remarks on this recommended budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has now, or I'll just turn it back over to the chair.
Questions?
Yeah, I have some questions, pretty low level. They probably don't need much explanation, but just a little clarification help me. And I'll just go through the list where I made some. You had mentioned, Mark, and this is on the second page of this book, the $200,000 for gap sidewalk along Broomfield and Bluegrass.
Where are you now? I'm sorry.
So it's gonna be under general, on
Okay.
page 2
Okay.
of your overview.
Yep.
And you had mentioned an appropriation of $200,000 for sidewalk gaps. along
In the
Bluegrass.
EDA fund?
Along Bluegrass and Broomfield. No, this was in the general fund.
Okay.
It's
Okay, I'm with you.
just a couple lines above where the fire starts.
Okay, yeah, right.
If we need to tap into that at all, would that cover the existing gaps? That amount, would that complete the gaps?
It would go a long way towards it. I'm not gonna say it's gonna complete it. The area that gets talked about the most is on Bluegrass, west of Hunter's Ale House, a rather large farm, and that has some unique challenges to it. If you look at the topography, it would take a tremendous amount of fill, dirt to raise that up. I don't know if you've ever looked at it closely, but it would be a very expensive infill. And while I recognize that the board is very focused on that section, the administration's fear, for what it's worth, is that if we do it, it'll cost a heck of a lot of money, more than this, than we got in here, primarily because of the topography. And then, if it ends up being developed, it would still require a sidewalk, but that sidewalk that we put in may or may not fit with their development plan. So that's the trick in that area. But if you took that aside, you know, there's not a lot of gaps left on Broomfield. Bluegrass is starting to fill in with development. And there's other sidewalks that we, you know, Pickard right here, you know. So.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Next page, I had a question on the first bullet point. You mentioned it's anticipated that the 2026 fire contract will be presented to the board. Are we in a annual renewal mode at this point in time as opposed to the
We are.
previous 3 or 5 with renewals?
Yeah, the last several years, we've actually been in an annual renewal mode. It was, we'd had maybe a 10-year contract, maybe not quite that long, but that expired. And then the city began their work on the review of the fire operation. And so as that work started, we said, let's just do an annual renewal, because they didn't know yet what they were going to look like. And that took 2 years as a practical matter. And so we're at least 2 years. So yes, we're in an annual mode, and I have reviewed a multi-year contract with the city manager. We're still going back and forth a little bit on that. But I think that's why I say I anticipate we'll be able to present that in early next year.
Okay, thank you. Going on down further under EDDA, operating about halfway down, and you had spoken of this a little bit, but under the bullet point that is funding of $400,000 is proposed for potential land assembly, so I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more on that, but you kind of touched on it a little bit to be in a position to be offensive and make some good choices.
Yeah. So one of the there's been discussion, and I'm not sure. There's some property in the industrial park off Pickard that used to house, I think, the tribal college, kind of a low-level, one-story series of older office, kind of look like older office building. That's up for sale. The gentleman that owns it is wanting a little bit more money than we've been willing to pay, but there's been presentations made to the EDA regarding that specific property a couple of times. There's been authorization from that board to the administration support, just Mr. Nanny. He's had a couple one-on-one meetings with the owner who lives in Saginaw in that gentleman's living room. And so we're trying to I don't know what to, we're working on them.
Would the
So-
general intent, if the township acquires those properties, would be to sell them
Yes.
in the future?
Yes.
So if I can jump in too, I can add, only because of my being on the EDA.
Yeah.
So the property is a legal non-conforming use of college, education. And that was started just before zoning. I think it was like 2 months before the zoning code went in Union Township, and that became industrial. And industrial, according to our zoning code, does not allow that particular use. So they were legal non-conforming because of grandfathering, essentially. And if you've seen those buildings, they don't have a great industrial application. As the manager said, they're more like office, single layer, separate buildings. And so it's kind of in a, how do I put this? Because it's a legal non-conforming use that doesn't have a large attraction, especially in that area, there's not a big market for it. And so what the ADA is discussing, potentially, if we were to get that, is to improve the property, which would mean demoing the buildings, and then getting it ready for sale for proper industrial use. It's on a corner, it's a great lot. Will that come to pass? I have no idea, because we've not taken action on this, other than I can give you a sense that the EDA is walking very carefully on this. They don't want to pull the trigger on something that is not a good idea, if that.
Well, thanks for
And they
your
haven't-
insight.
does that
on
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I just needed a little clarification on what that line even meant, you know.
Yeah. And there's some property over south of Jameson Park that we, as the administration,
Okay,
are talking to the EDA
okay.
about.
Yeah, okay. Next, pretty simple question. Under the fire tab, it'd be the second page. It lists salary, wages, Medicare, retirement, health. My assumption is that probably is part of the manager's salary? Is that why there is?
No, it's been an attempt, and probably not a very good one to date, but in my mind, the hydrant flushing program, it's done primarily for the benefit of the water system, but is also benefiting the fire system. And so in my mind, the fire fund could be paying for some of that.
Okay,
And
staff labor to get it.
staff labor, that kind of thing. We need to improve how we report and allocate the time. Is sort of a holding spot. You'll see at the very bottom, hydrant flushing, $10,000. That's part of trying to get our feet wet with the fire fund paying for part of the hydrant flushing program.
Okay, thanks. While we're on that page, I'll use this page as an example, just enlighten me a little bit. On the furthest column to the right, under the 2026 approved budget,
Mm-hmm.
on each fund, it's populated with the beginning fund balance and an end fund balance, and I just would like to, I don't understand why that's exactly there, so.
That's just a reporting convention that they're doing. If you look at the 20, it will stay in the fire fund. Look at the 25 projected activity column. You'll see at the very bottom, projected year-end fund balance of $1,612,000.
Yeah, 25 projected activity, yep.
That becomes the beginning fund balance for the 26 recommended budget.
Correct, yep.
And since there's, and then, so it also becomes the beginning year for the recommended until there's some numbers in that column. It's just the way the BSNA report
Okay.
reports.
And that all made sense, but then you also have a population under the ending fund balance, which is equal to the beginning fund. So I imagined it was just a default thing that populates like
Yeah.
that, but I just
Yeah.
wasn't really sure.
Right. We can't remove it in the report because it's a canned report, but you can't ignore it.
Okay. Under other information tab, the first page, the last item. I didn't understand zoning letter of compliance, $50 per letter. What kind of fee, what is a zoning letter of compliance?
So somebody wants to do something on their property and it may not even require site plan. It probably is requiring a building permit. Somebody comes in, applies for a building permit. We have to make sure that whatever the build is, even if it's a deck or a shed, that it meets zoning. So there's some zoning review being done and they issue a letter. And at times it may not even rise to the level of a building permit, but somebody's asking for a review of what they want to do from a zoning perspective.
Okay, understand, just wasn't sure on that. And, so a few more pages beyond that page, you get into the personal cost summary report. And there's, under some of the different positions or departments, some have some values associated with it, but the lump sum in lieu of step, is that kind of doing, I assumed it to be maybe as we reviewed maybe wage studies that we've received information on, or trying to get folks in the most appropriate wage or benefit, that there was monies issued as opposed because they're in between steps or classes or whatever.
Sort of. In the labor agreements, existing labor agreements, there are 9 steps and then it ends. And if, for instance, in the existing agreement, if you were, say, at the beginning of at the end of 24, let's say you were at step 8, and then on 1/1 of 25, you would move to step 9, and then you don't have any more steps to move to. And so as part of the negotiation, there's a clause that says if you're not able to go to the next step at the beginning of the next year, you'll get an inflationary increase because now you're moving from, say, 25 table to a 26 table, but you're still at step 9. So there's a clause in the labor agreement that says that you'll get a lump sum. We're not increasing your base wage, but you'll get a lump sum payment at the end of that fiscal year that I want to say is 2.5 or 3% of your annual salary. And if you only work here part of the year, you'll get a pro rata share of that. but it's a way to, because the person at step 9, what you've been saying is, once you get to step 9, what you really need to be doing is going to another, career ladder, up the ladder to a higher level, higher grade position. We're limited on those around here. And one way the township has dealt with that in the past is created in the negotiations a step 9.5 or a step 10 to deal with that. But I didn't think that made sense because I didn't want to increase the base wage.
Now, that explains it.
So that's what that lump sum represents.
So there is some numbers populated in some of those. So that's already determined, and that will be an expenditure in 2026.
It's an assumption that that clause will stay in the contract.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
But I think the other thing you were asking, if I understood correctly, is some departments have values in there for that, and some do not.
Meaning
so
some
that's-
staff in some departments.
Right. So
It
it's-
applies to. And
My
the others
assumption
don't.
is that some departments, that's not applicable because nobody's even close to
Yeah.
being able to take advantage of it or whatever.
Doesn't come
it is.
into play until somebody is at step 9, and then they've reached the end of their step.
Right.
And if you wanted to be strict about it, you'd only receive an inflationary increase, where everybody else is receiving an inflationary increase plus an increase from step A to B.
Right. Thank you. And that concludes my questions.
Others? I have just 2, I believe. And I'll start with this one because we're in the other information section, kind of. We're close to it. I have 3, I guess. One is just a comment. On the Public Services Department, in the middle, turn on off rates, just a typo, there's a double $ for non-payment.
It's expensive.
Okay?
Just a typo. But my question is, and this came up most recently by a person that came to our meeting, who made some comments about her water bill. The comments she made, I've heard repeatedly from other people in our township, and that has to do with, she was a single individual in a household. Why is she paying this base amount for 15,000 gallons, which never comes close to it? And so she felt like single person homes are getting penalized versus, say, a family, right? And I get that. And I'm not suggesting I want to make a change to the water service quarterly rate. There's 2 increases that are happening. One is on the per quarter up to 15,000 gallons, and then per 1,000 gallons after that 15K gallons. If we're doing that water cost service study next year, is this something we look at, is the quarterly rates? And can we look at lowering that 15,000 gallon as the base to maybe 12,000? And increasing then the overall cost of each 1,000 gallons after that? Kind of speaking to that single home. Is that something we have them look at?
Yeah, we can have them look at whatever we want them to look at. Where I would want to go is the elimination of the REU entirely. There are, I mean, it's probably 50-50. There are just as many municipalities use the REU as use the actual flow that's gone through the meter. You know, whatever your method is, you know, there's two things. You're trying to create equity within the system and within for the ratepayers, primarily, and that primarily falls into different classes. We don't have different classes of rates. We just have one rate. Some places would have a commercial rate, a residential rate, industrial rate. You know, the further away you get from the plant, the more expensive it is to get you the water. You know? But I'm just more used to seeing that if 1,000 gallons goes through the meter in a month, that's what you get charged for. You know, whatever your factor is, you know. And I think that the cost of service study is going to talk about that change. It would also talk about things like what's going to be what does one RU represent? Right now it represents 15,000 gallons. You know, it could represent something else. But at the end of the day, between your rates and then your other sources of revenue into a utility fund, you need to be generating sufficient revenue to operate the plant and maintain it to a level that the board wants. But all that is, and the other thing that is associated with this is the ordinances for the water and the sewer. There's two separate ordinances. They're both long and they're both very old. And, you know, it'll be a big job, it'll be a big change, it'll have positive and negative impacts. But what the township really needs to do is update its ordinance and, in my mind, move away from the RU concept. And how to do that's going to be those will be the devil details.
All right, what's step one?
Hmm?
What is step one?
Cost service study.
Okay.
And so the last time we did cost of service study, I think you said 17. I remember 19 when I was a trustee that
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time
I think
looking
I
at
said 17, but the memo says 20, and I think it's 20 by the time it was actually published.
Okay. So, yeah, we went through it at that time then and looked at it. As the manager said, there are winners and losers when you make that kind of change. So some people that are getting off well with the rates the way they are may end up paying more later, and other people that are being penalized now might do better. And so some people are happy with that switch, some are not. And I think the issue is how much political will this board would have to go through the pain of it. Because I think the manager's right, that ultimately switching away from that RU would be best for the township.
That's right.
Feels to me it's more transparent, it's easily explainable.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So those two
It's
things.
more fair.
Going back to the lady who came in and talked to us, I've had personal experience with having a leak and then not knowing about it until you get your bill. I can't imagine letting it go for a quarter and then finding out, oh, I used this much more water
Right.
than I thought I was going to use, and be hit with that kind of shock.
And you're on a fixed income.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my comment is, this is how I look at it, kind of. It may be a fallacy, but water is really pretty inexpensive. The price of the water itself. The infrastructure, maintenance of it, improvement of it's pretty considerable. So I almost feel like the rate that the residential people pay are just pretty much given the opportunity to use 15,000 gallons of water in a quarter. We could say 1,000, you know, and after 1,000, it goes to the 278 per thousand. But we say you can use 15,000 gallons. I'm sure came up with a logical reason as far as that's a usage that seems appropriate for a normal household. But, so even though a person isn't using 15,000, that's great. But of course they're gonna think I'm paying for something I'm not using. But that actual cost of water is not the high end of the bill
No,
in my mind.
I don't disagree.
So a number had to come up, be established. And so I just feel like it's almost, the township's virtually giving you the first 15,000 because it's justifiable in the cost of the bill. But I certainly understand somebody not using it think I'm paying too much.
Wait, especially if
Oh, yeah.
you're, like this woman's case, living on Social Security,
Right.
Oh, I
uh,
understand.
fixed income.
It's
So I literally just
It's
Googled this.
tough.
The average use for a single person of water is about 3,000 gallons per month. So
So
she's
12
topping out at like
9,000.
9,000 gallons.
Yeah.
I can
So
understand.
And
it's
even-
interesting
I-
what the township, how they figure out what that cost of that first 15,000 gallons is.
Well, I think our manager said one REU is 15,000 gallons. Yeah, how,
What
So that's a minimum number.
what you're getting at, Trustee Lannon, is, and you see it a bit in the sewer side, but there's variable costs, which in this case is the water, and then there's the fixed costs, which is all the plant and equipment. And really, for both sides, water and sewer, you would have two rates, you would have two rates for your water bill. One is the fixed cost, and you could imagine that would be the same for every single family home in the township. And it would be a chunk of money. And then the variable costs is the water going through the meter. And some of the other variable costs are the chemicals or the chlorine or, whatever. But full transparency and really ease of financial management is you allocate the fixed costs across your system in an equitable manner. All the residents would be the same, but they may not be the same as a shopping center that is, 10 acres or something. And then the variable rate, the whatever factor, 10 cents per, 100 gallons or 100 or 15 for 1,000 gallons, whatever that variable rate is. You could control that, and it's different depending on how much water is going through the meter. One person household versus four. But a one person household, like it or not, needs to, in its simplest fashion, needs to pay the same amount for the fixed costs as every other account holder. And that part is sort of hard to, because what you find is the fixed cost amount is pretty high,
Right.
and you don't have any control over it. And you could use no water and still have to pay it.
So my point being partly is, I certainly sympathize with someone who doesn't use much water and is paying for more than their consumption. but I'm really thrilled about having another water study, reevaluating the appropriate rates that maybe charged to entities and folks that becomes maybe more equitable for all, you know, and makes them believe that their rate is more appropriate.
So we need to do
Yep.
some work on the transparency, I'll say, of the fund. You know, our last, what we look at from a financial management perspective are kind of like 3 or 4 bogeys, I'll call them. You know, do you have sufficient debt service ratios? You look at the balance sheet and you figure that out. If you don't, you need to increase rates. Do you have enough working capital to pay for your expenses that are coming up as you do your billing, whether it's monthly or quarterly? Do you have enough cash on hand? Because you need cash to cash flow things. And the fourth one's escaping me right now, but, you know, we look at those measurements to see what the financial condition of the fund is. And when we last looked at those in great detail, and some of those are even competing with each other. You increase rates to get a debt service ratio up where you need. Well, that's going to add to cash, but maybe you got enough cash already. So, you know, it's a balancing act. But the last time we went through all those, we were well within the desired brackets, ranges for each of those 4. Some of them were on the high side, you know, you'd like to bring them down, but that might create this other one going up on the high side. So you, and I say that because you have your expenses of the system, variable and fixed. Then you have to produce revenue to manage that. And that can come in a variety of different ways. RUs, exact what goes through the meter, the more fees you have in some systems. Look at Ann Arbor's schedule. They got 2 pages of fees for water that are not related to the water bill you get. You know, hookup fees, the fire department, you know, lock boxes, you know, there's all kind of fees. There's a fee for everything. And the more of those you have, the less you need revenue from the usage side of it. But, you know, it's all
So
a trade-off.
Yeah.
that water cost study is in the process, or it's just gonna be started soon?
It'll begin, I don't know exactly when yet, FY26.
Oh, okay. And how long does it take? How long does the study take?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, month, 2 months, or no idea? Okay.
I know you want it done yesterday,
Yes.
but that's not going to happen.
Right.
This is a complex exercise. It's complex
Sure.
to get your head wrapped around. Our consultant is one of the top ones around, Dawn. We do bounce these usage rates off her. She does a quick analysis. Is one of these bogeys really out of whack? You know, and the answer to that question this time was stay on your rate track and your bogeys are okay. but that's a high-level look, but it's good enough for now. The water or sewer, neither the water or sewer fund, and, you know, whatever you hear out in the wild, but they are not making money hand over foot. They are making money sufficient that the industry standards for these 4 bogeys are within the ranges we want them to be in.
So do we tell her going into it that we would like to, if possible, transition away from the REU? And then she can focus on that, this is the way to do it? Is that,
Yeah, and the last study began to speak to some of that. I'm just trying to think. You know, until you see the results, you're not going to make a change.
Right.
So, you know, you may end up doing 2 types of studies. You know, here's, you know, the current way we do it. Here's our bogeys. What's the rate track? And what should the benefit fees be, or the hookup fees be, and, you know, those kind of things. And you can translate that into what's going through the meter, you know, some amount for every 1,000 gallons or 100 gallons, whatever you want to pick. You need to pick something, though, because you don't bill by the drop.
right,
You know. But all that'll get looked at in this study. But I think the most important thing I want to leave this board with is neither the water fund or the sewer fund is, again, making money hand over foot.
right.
The fund is allowed to have a return on investment, and I believe that in our formulas is, I don't think it's 7%, but I know it's more than 5%.
Well, they have to have some money on hand in case something breaks big, you know.
The ratepayers have invested a lot of money. They're entitled to a return on that investment, and so the rates are set up to create that return.
Yep.
And
So if going away from REU is beneficial to the township, I hope we can make that happen.
pardon me?
If going away from the REUs is beneficial to the township overall, I hope we can make it happen.
You can probably argue both
My out of the
sides.
gate is that it would be more transparent.
Yes.
It's the transition piece that
Yes.
is gonna
Yeah, be
be
rough.
up to you folks.
Yeah.
And people can argue both sides of it, which is better, and
Right, yep.
pros and cons to each.
Yep.
So I brought this up. One, I wanted to bring up the cost study because you had mentioned it as a budgeted item. And I wanted to make sure we're looking into our rates, which I know the cost study does. But when I looked at the water service quarterly rate, I thought, well, we're going up $3 for the minimum, and we're going up $2.78 per 1,000 gallons after that. If I was doing this by gut, I'm not suggesting this, but when I first looked at it, I'm like, well, don't raise the $67 for the minimum, the 15,000 gallons. Just raise the per 1,000 gallons to cover costs. That way you're not increasing the penalty on those
Who aren't using it.
single-family homes. Yeah. And that's what led to me wanting to bring this up.
Right.
My other question, this is kind of in the weeds a little bit, but I'm really curious. This is under sewer. Page, I'm sorry, water. My apologies. Page 3 of 4, kind of in the middle. And in the middle, it says maintenance water towers. And then there's a blue section there which has the footnotes for the two things. So I see the cathodic protection, what's being recommended for the budget there is 30,000 out of the 35 for this line item. I'm just curious, because I'm real familiar with cathodic protection, but not with cathodic protection on water towers. Do you know how that works?
I do not.
Can I pick Kim's brain on that?
Sure.
Okay, so with that, I mean, the CP, the cathodic protection, caught my eye just because I'm in that industry some. So, but I see the fluctuations over the 24, 25. So 24 is only $16,000. What I'm wondering is what's changing so dramatically? You don't have to answer that now. I'm just curious. Is that
What's your question other than what is
just?
cathodic protection?
I'm surprised at the jump from like 24 activities pretty low. The 25 activities so far is still pretty low. Now, granted, we might spend a lot more before the end of the year, but I'm trying to think why cathodic protection would cost. That's typically
Does
an
the anode-
ongoing cost.
Did the anode metal go up?
That's what I'm wondering, is it, do you have to replace the anode bed, or is this more of I would think it's done with just electricity. We have electricity in the tower, right?
They might only have to test every 3 years or 4 years.
You think
There may
that's
be a
testing stuff?
there may be a requirement on when they have to test, whether it's a 3-year test or whatever the feds are requiring.
If that's the case, I mean, maybe one is scheduled for this year and 2 other ones are scheduled.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just noticed the fluctuations, and it
Right.
kind of caught
Yeah.
my eye, and
Understandable.
it only caught my eye because it happens to be.
Because of the word
What you-
cathodic.
Yeah, exactly.
Caught you.
So it's more curious about it than anything else.
No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
Yep, I got a note there and we'll get some information back.
It's not a big deal. I'm sure there's reasoning for it. I was just curious as to why, because it did seem to fluctuate quite a bit. Anybody else have questions? We'll have lots of opportunities. So going forward, in the past, we have typically approved the budget, with the exception of maybe the last year or maybe 2 even, at our single December meeting. You see the manager put down the recommendation that if we stay on schedule, we can be November 12th potentially as approving a budget. But it's up to us if we want to get into the weeds on anything as you go through this.
Cathodic protection.
Yep. So if we need special sessions, we can do that. If we can cover stuff in an extra meetings, we just need to know, so we put it on our agenda. All good? And if we pass at least item A, well, we'll have a public hearing somewhere along the way anyways. Are we all good then?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewel Dwyer, are you good?
Yes.
Thank you, Manager,
thank
for
you.
the
Yes, this is,
the high
Thank
level.
you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I know there's a lot of staff that get involved in putting this all together too, and I see Hannah over there. Thank you for all your involvement too.
Well, thank you, and I meant to, as I was concluding, thank the organization and particularly Hannah. She's done a tremendous amount of work. You know, there's a lot of change going on in the finance department. The rep from the Woodhill Group, although we had access, she was in Iceland for the last 3 weeks, so leaning on Hannah a lot. Could have leaned on some other folks within the Woodhill Group, but that's, you know, $200 to $250 an hour, so doing a great job.
Very good. Moving on then. That finishes item 5 on our agenda. That takes us to public comment, which is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on the agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And we will open up public comment at 8:35 p.m.
There's nobody online.
Let the record show nobody's connected online, and I see no one present coming forward, so we'll close it. Public comment at 8:35 p.m. That takes us to item 9 on the agenda, report board comments. Current list of boards and commissions, appointments as needed. I'm just going to highlight a couple things here. So if you can reference this, might be helpful. Planning Commission, we have potentially 3 seats coming vacant, either in February, okay? Let's see. Zoning Board, we have 3 becoming vacant, either at the end of the year or in February in the 3rd seat, which is the PC, the Planning Commission representative. Obviously, if Nivea McDonald does not get reappointed or apply, however that happens, that leaves that additional opening on the Zoning Board, which the Planning Commission would have to fill. Construction Board of Appeals, I've not had conversations with any of the 3 that currently serve. It's a 2-year term, but those all end at the end of this calendar year. Hannah's Bark Park, currently Mr. Stuhldreher and John Dinsey, a former trustee. His term is up on 12/31/25, John Dinsey's. One of our Chippewa River District is also due at the end of the year.
I believe he has submitted an application.
Yeah,
Yes, John did. In fact, it's at our desk.
Sitting right here.
Again, EDA, I have been harping on that one every meeting, just as a note. We have 1 vacancy there. The Mid-Michigan Area Cable Consortium, Kim Smith is currently appointed to that. That also term ends the end of this calendar year. I'd kind of like to talk to Director Smith more about that appointment and what it takes, because we do have the opportunity to put in a 2nd representative if we chose. And then last one I want to point out is the CRC. Trustee Lay just got appointed. You've had 1 or you've had 2 meetings?
One
now?
meeting, and we have our next one next week
Next
on
week.
Wednesday.
And that term ends this 2025. That's a 3-year term. We do have an application from John Dinsey for Hannah Dog Park, re-upping. As I mentioned, Mr. Stuhldreher also sits on that. John Dinsey has been on that board, I believe, since its inception, which was somewhere in the 2014 neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't think it was too much before I got here.
And he was instrumental in helping bring Hannah's Bark Park to reality. I'm assuming John has been an active member
Oh,
on
yeah.
that.
He's at every meeting.
If this board would like to go in through nomination of that, I'd be happy to. Trustee Landon?
So I was thinking traditionally, you like to
Wait.
wait a little while for
And I'm
more
okay with that.
applications, but I certainly would be pleased to nominate John Dinsey to continue in his position as representative on the Hannesburg Park.
Support.
Just add in
Sorry?
the date.
12/31/27.
Term ending.
Right.
You good with that?
With the term ending
31/27.
12/31/2027.
Are you good with
Support,
that?
yes.
Yeah, I do have a preference in trying to, if it's not urgent, to try to let it stay open so that others can apply. but I also know John Dizzy's particular passion with this particular park, and all he's put into it. He's certainly a good fit to be a representative there, so I certainly support him. Other comments?
I just can't think of anybody else who truly enjoys it, has the passion to see the park be maintained well and continue on into perpetuity. And John has a real passion to be involved in that area of the township. So I'm proud to nominate him.
So we have a nomination or motion by, trying to read your name tag there, Trustee Lannon,
Yeah.
support by Trustee Rogers. Sorry, Treasurer Rogers. Any other on this? All in favor of nominating John Dinsey to Hannah's Bark Park Committee, term ending 12/31/2027, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Well, I'm excited he was willing to come back. I want to ask Trustee Lay here, I guess, as long as we're on it. CRC, that's something you would like to continue
Yes,
with?
please.
Could I make a nomination?
Yeah, you may.
I would be pleased to make a nomination for Trustee Lay to continue as a representative on our Cultural Recreation Committee with a date expiring
It's 3 years from now.
3 years, so 12/31/2028.
Support.
Motion by Lannon, support by Brown. I was hoping you'd want to serve again.
Yes.
You just got started, and I think
Yes.
you had a great start.
And we're about to vote in people
Right.
for positions, and it would really suck if I got voted in and then had to leave.
Yeah. Anybody know this applicant by chance? I'm joking. Any other comments?
Support, and somebody support it.
I did hear support,
Brown.
motion by Lannon, support by Brown. Anything else?
I
Thank
would just mention that I think the candidate has great passion to serve on this board and will reflect upon the township in great light.
Well said. All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of appointing Trustee Lay to the CRC, term ending 12/31/2028, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you again. Motion passes unanimously. I didn't realize when we appointed you that
I was finishing off a very short.
finishing off a very short term. So I lift these other ones up so that as you're in the community or as you're, you need things to think about, you're thinking about filling some of these seats. Planning Commission, if you have an opportunity, you want to ask some of those members if they're willing to reapply. Are we good?
Yay.
Okay. Moving on, board member reports. Trustee Thering.
We're good.
Clerk Cody. Trustee Brown.
I'm all set.
Trustee Lannon.
Yes, I have a meeting to report on. I attended the regular meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners last night. And the vast majority of the meeting was appointing folks to committees. As a matter of fact, there were 6 folks appointed to the Opiate Advisory Committee from various walks of the community. Represented would have been Isabella County Trial Court, Central Michigan District Health Department, 1016 Recovery Network, Community Health for Central Michigan, an at-large representative in the behavioral health or substance use disorder area, and a representative at-large practicing in the medical profession. A couple appointments were made to the Human Rights Committee. one representing Central Michigan University, and one was a representative at large. Then they passed their standard expenditures and paying the bills and things. And they passed an agreement between the Isabella County Trial Court and the Government Employees Labor Council. Then they went into a closed session. But they did allow for time for public comment before going into closed session. Questions? Thank you.
Trustee Lay?
Got nothing right now.
Treasurer Rogers?
I attended the Michigan Municipality Treasurers Association conference 2 weeks ago, and then last week was in Bel Air, Sandy Creek. Last week I was in Frankenmuth for a day training with the Michigan Treasurers Association, Michigan Township Association. And I have lots of notes about just some things that might improve a little efficiency, save a few steps. And so I'm composing those and then be going over them with Manager Struldryer and see what we can implement to just start sharpen our pencil a little bit and just work tighter as a team and be more efficient. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, you were going to attend a road commission meeting the day after our last board meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and just wondered what the results came out of that. I think
There wasn't much. There wasn't much. It was just the one thing they said was that they hadn't had been safety, no major incidents for like 6 years. That was the biggest note that I had.
Okay. I was thinking, it was requested of you to ask them about something that's going on in the township, right?
Oh, Bud Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the report there?
Well, that's kind of funny how that worked out because I asked what's happening on Bud Street, and then they brought the plan out showing the parcels, and then mentioned that someone owned the parcel, and I know them, and I reached out to them and asked about putting the sidewalk, and so we started the conversation. So it was exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just know
So,
whatever
yeah.
was asked, I was interested to
Yeah.
know it.
Yep.
You
So
came
we
back.
started the conversation
So
to
thanks.
move forward on that. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Very
Thanks for
good.
reminding me.
And I have nothing to add, so we'll move on to consent agenda. The memo from you. I skipped that.
Am I supposed to read it, or y'all?
I read it.
Oh,
Did
everyone's
you
read
did
it?
you want to add anything to that?
No.
Everybody saw the memo?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're working to get these cleaned up, so, I hope in time that just they get taken care of and we move forward.
I do have a question. Help me understand a little bit. Just when I think about the assessments, say subdivision is getting some road work and the township is willing to finance it. As Mr. Stuhldreher said, when we were talking about special assessments earlier in the budget, that some people may pay in full.
Mhm.
I know the township will finance a person over time at a percentage, an interest percentage, I believe is accurate.
Mhm.
Now, my question basically is, how do they become delinquent? Because aren't they gonna be charged in their tax bill? If they don't pay up front, don't they, for say 6 years, get charged on their taxes at a certain amount?
There's two separate things going on.
Okay,
There's the special assessment,
okay,
and this letter refers to 3 paving assessment districts
yeah,
that the board has approved. And the individuals in that district, some paid up front, they're done. Others have chosen to pay over installments, and usually that's 10 years, because that's what the board, in all 3 of these cases, it's 10 years, and
okay,
interest rates might be a little different, but they max out at, I think, 8, and it's 2 or 3% over prime, whatever the policy is.
And they pay that through, on their tax bill?
No.
No.
So they owe that money to the township.
Yep.
And then then the question becomes, how do we want to bill them?
Okay.
And in these cases, a few years ago, we started having a due date of, I think, September 1. So their installments due September 1. And if they pay it, everything's fine. If they don't pay that installment, then we have a process, and this is part of it, to put that on the next available winter tax bill,
Okay.
which is going out December 1 of 25. So by rule, the treasurer provides this report, and there's 3 tables associated with it. There's, I think, 14 accounts over the 3 paving districts, 7,000 something maybe that's due.
Yeah.
And some of those will probably get paid between now and December 1, so we try to monitor that. But if they aren't paid, it goes on to the winter tax bill, and hopefully they pay it through that.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure how they became delinquent. So September 2nd, they're delinquent, basically, if they haven't made the payment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or the
It's due
first,
September
whichever.
1st. I don't, I'd have to look at the
Yeah, all right.
language. You
Yeah.
probably got some amount of time to pay the bill before it's delinquent.
Thank you. Very clear.
So when you pay a drain assessment to the county drain commissioner, typically that's put on your tax bill? And I think that's
Different.
maybe what you're referring to, right, is what you're used to seeing those assessments on the tax bill itself, right? Is that why you asked this on
Well,
that?
I just thought you either pay it, or if you choose to be financed over 10 years, it just automatically was put on your tax bill. But
So how-
that is not the case.
Can you explain that difference? I think you said it's different.
So the paving special assessments that we were just discussing are Union Township resident initiated special assessments. The roll has been approved by the county board. There's a district that's been created by not the county board, the township board. There's a district that's been created by the township board, and that's all our gain. Okay. The county drain commissioner also levies special assessments, and and I don't know if it's convenience or if they have to, but I could see where it'd be convenient. We receive a file from the county on these parcels. This is what you need to charge for these various drains. So they are on the tax bill. What happens if that tax bill is not paid, and therefore those assessments aren't paid? I think it's treated the same as if the tax is not paid. We get turned over to the county treasurer for collection.
Which would be
But
true.
we're just acting as agent for a county drain special assessment.
Right. I think, I had my neighborhood done, and I think it was paid through my tax bill at the time, the road assessment.
The road.
The road assessment through Union Township.
Yeah, and they used to place those on, we used to place those on the winter tax bill as a billing mechanism. Okay? We could have sent you a separate invoice. A few years ago, I have trouble, if it's placed on the winter tax bill, how does it ever become delinquent? Because we are responsible for collecting it. And in order to put a delinquent installment on the winter tax roll, we have to go through certain steps for our own assessments. And if we were using the tax bill as the initial billing mechanism, it just
Okay.
created more confusion in my mind. So I said a few special assessment rolls ago that we're gonna have a due date of September 1, and it's in the resolutions. And that way it just kinda creates, in my mind, a cleaner process. So the only way it ends up on a winter tax bill now is if it's delinquent.
That's helpful, thank you.
So at some point in time, if the homeowner doesn't pay in full and choose to go that route, is an invoice sent out then annually from the
Yes,
township?
finance sends out a invoice to all these folks
Okay,
in probably in June or July, somewhere like that,
okay,
and then with a September 1 due date.
okay. So that's kind of new to me. I just didn't understand how it became delinquent.
Yeah.
I appreciate it because it helped me. Are we good then?
Yes.
Did you have anything else in that memo?
No, thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions on that? Consent agenda, happy to entertain any motions regarding that.
Move to approve?
Support.
A motion by Rogers, support by Cody. Who had warrants?
We're good.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to new business, item A, set a public hearing for the fiscal year 2026 budget. What's being proposed is currently the October 22nd, 2025, which would be our next meeting. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you. Just briefly, there's a report on page 34 of your packet. A public hearing is required. My recommendation is that, and the board is required to take action to set the public hearing. That's what we're doing tonight. And recommendation is that you set that public hearing to be held October 22nd. That'll provide opportunity for the citizens to comment on the budget. If approved, it'll be properly noticed in the paper this Sunday for maximum circulation. And then in the budget book, one of these is already at the counter for citizens. It would be placed online after tonight if approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to approve the schedule of the FY 2026 budget adoption public hearing for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025, and to notice same in the Morning Sun as required by state statute.
Support.
Motion by Rogers, support by Cody. Any comments, questions? Hearing none. Anybody not clear in the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item B of new business.
That didn't
Public-
need a roll call to this resolution.
We were just scheduling that
We're
hearing.
just setting the public hearing.
I guess the resolution there.
No.
Yeah, I know, that always triggers me too, but
We're good.
good question though. Public Act 152, Publicly Funded Healthcare Insurance Contribution Act, Exemption Cost Sharing Resolution. This is something we do annually. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you. The report on this begins on page 26. As indicated, this is an annual exercise. I'm guessing that approximately 10 years now ago, the state put in some requirements on local governing bodies because the healthcare expense was becoming such a big chunk of money. And so every year, the local unit of government needs to declare how they're going to operate in this arena. There's 3 options that the board has. One is referred to as the hard cap, where you're basically following what the state's doing. And they issue specific dollar amounts that is all that the employer can pay. The other is referred to as the 80-20 rule, and that basically says that the employer is going to pay 80% of the premium, and that takes a majority vote of the board to do the 80-20. If we were going to be using the hard cap, there wouldn't be any vote needed. And our recommendation, because there is a third option where the local unit of government can opt out, and that's what we're recommending doing, primarily because the recommendation's based on the fact that you as the board, are the closest to the ground. You know more what's going on with the employees and the employer and what needs to be done in that arena to balance recruitment and retention and all that. And so we recommend that the board use the opt-out provision, and to demonstrate that collectively, administratively in the board, that we're aware of this large expense and that we're managing it in a way that benefits all of us, employees and employers, and was recognized back in 2017 that when we were paying 100% of the premium, that cost share was a bit out of balance. So over the years, this table has shown the progress we're making. And so I continue to recommend that we opt out. It does take 2/3 vote of the board, which would mean 5 out of 7 of you need to approve it. If you do the 80-20, it's just a majority, simple majority vote. But I've always recommended that we opt out as long as we're making progress on cost sharing. Thank you.
Any questions for our manager? Anyone feel like making a motion?
Sure do. Make a motion to consider approval of the attached resolution opting out of the employer health care benefit plan contribution limits as allowed under State of Michigan Public Act 152, Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act, for the benefit year of 2025.
And that's a typo. That should be 26.
Yeah.
26.
I apologize.
Yep.
Support.
For,
Oh, sorry.
Can you take
Yep.
out consider?
oh,
Just
yes.
motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Okay.
Take the word consider out.
Trustee Lay, you good with that change?
I am fine with that change.
A motion by Brown, support by Trustee Lay. Questions?
Roll call.
Seeing none. I thought we'd have some questions in this one. Would you do a roll call of the board, please? Is anybody not clear on the motion?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Treasurer Rogers,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Trustee Lay,
Yes.
Trustee Theron,
Yes.
and Clerk Cody, yes.
Thank you. My count was unanimous
Yep.
support. That brings us to item 11C on our agenda, early voting contract between the City of Mount Pleasant and Union Township. Mr. Stuhldreher, Clerk Cody, either one of you want to introduce this one?
Well, I'll just start. There's a report on page 40, your agenda packet. You're being asked to consider approving an early voting agreement for election services between Union Township and the city of Mount Pleasant. This has to do with early voting, which is allowed per state law now. It's applicable to only certain elections. We didn't have an early voting period, I don't think, this year.
No.
But 26, the nature of the elections requires it, the general election primarily. So that's going to be held in 2026. The statutes and the Constitution allow for municipalities to enter into joint service agreements. So that's what we've done. We had a joint voting location last in 2023, and that was held in Powers Hall at Central Michigan. That's where this agreement indicates that it will be held again in 2026. By having a joint agreement, one, we have only one location. It makes it easier for the voters. And then we also have the ability to share costs, staff, resources. The city clerk is new this year, Ms. Holly Schmelzer, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. She will serve as the coordinator, and she's responsible for organizing, monitoring, and making sure that things are going okay. If she becomes unavailable, then Township Clerk Ms. Cody assumes those responsibilities. There are, in this agreement, hours of when they're open. It's 8 to 4 for those 9 days. So we've gone through this routine before, worked well, and so costs will be split 50-50, and that's all I have.
So the agreement doesn't specifically state Powers Hall, right? Just the plan does.
No, we would have to have a different agreement for that, but we're not changing the location, so we don't need an approval for that. It's just
Oh, it
for the
does.
contract for us
So-
to work together.
Yeah, I guess my only question is if something were to happen where CMU needs to opt out of that for some reason.
We would find a different location for the 9 days. But we'd have to have it separate from this. It always has to be separate from this.
It does.
Yeah.
So if the site moves, you have
Yeah,
to do a new one.
that has to be,
Okay. I was confused as to
A
why it was
resolution.
referenced there directly versus the exhibit, which is the plan, which I'm assuming the plan can change a little bit, but the agreement would not.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I move we approve the early voting agreement for election services between City of Mount Pleasant and the Charter Township of Union.
Support.
A motion by Rogers, support by Cody. Other comments, questions? Do you need a roll call on this, Clerk Cody?
No, sorry.
Anybody not clear on the motion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agreement with Mount Pleasant for early voting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That finishes our new business and takes us to extended public comment, which is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we will open up extended public comment at 9:09 PM.
There's nobody online.
Let the record show, still nobody connected online. Nobody jumping forward in public here. So So we'll close extended public comment at 9:09 PM. That takes us to item 13 on the agenda, manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher.
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief. We do continue to have an open position, skilled operators, heavy equipment operator. So if you know of anybody out there, send them our way. The cleanup day was very successful. Appreciate all the folks that came in and helped. The feedback from the citizens and even all of us working it is really positive. It's kind of a fun day, fun morning. There were 233 cars that came through. We filled up the roll-off with steel and aluminum and those kind of things. Pretty much filled up both compactors. I hope to get a little bit more detailed report with some history produced for you all, which really hasn't been done in a number of years. But it went smoothly, and we had good weather, so that was good. And then I should have mentioned this, probably the better time would have been during the budget. But similarly to, you recall on the drinking water side, we were awarded a $10.9 million, ended up being a grant, 100% grant. And that was through an application process that we did. And they have a similar program, similar, not the same, on the sewer side. They happen to call that one the Clean Water State Revolving Loan or State Revolving Program. Clean water being sewer. And we applied for that, and we were awarded $6.5 million for work on the sewer side. Now that comes as a loan. That's not a grant.
Oh,
Excuse me. But it does come with an 11% forgiveness provision. Why they do it this way, and that's guaranteed. So as a practical matter, if we take advantage of this, we would be borrowing $6.5 million. The interest rate's 2%, which amounts to free money. And then at the end of it, 11% of that is forgiven right off the top, which is $715,000. So you can get, in this case, $6.5 million of work done for $5.85 million, because 11% of it's just a grant, and then what you do borrow is at 2%. We were awarded that, and they needed to know pretty quickly what our intention was, and I declared that our intention was to move forward. There are opportunities to back out of this. I'm not sure why we would, but it will impact our 2026 budget. For instance, one of the contracts that was approved a couple months ago was for the fine screening. That is part of this application. So we're, like we had to do with the water side, we had a lot of these projects already in the budget, then we get this award and we have to move money around to make it all look like it makes sense. But the long and short of it is, we, and these are competitive, they assign points, and we receive 40 points, and the more points, the better in this case. And they were able to fund municipalities down to a 40-point level, and we had 40 points. in the past, we've applied for these kind of programs, but we've not gotten enough points, so we get put off to the side. But this time we were successful, and the two things, I think there's three, the funds would be used for the fine screening, which was around $600,000, or maybe a little more than that, closer to 700,000. And then our two big screw pumps over there are at the end of their useful life. You may recall that we added a third not too many years ago for redundancy, and now these other two, we replaced them as part of this plan. And then there's something else, a third piece, but it's all part of kind of the normal work or the maintenance, and the life replacement of what we'd be doing anyways. So it's pretty, it's not all the way free like the water grant was. But I don't know why we'd cash finance it or, delay it when we get 11% of it free, and then we're paying 2% interest, and those provisions for early payoff and that kind of thing. There'll be a lot of paperwork associated because we are borrowing money, so we'll have to involve bond counsel and financial advisors, and some of you may or may not have gone through a debt issuance exercise, but we'll take you through it step by step, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for the board to say, "Nah, we're going to pass." But I did want to announce that tonight, and the better place would have been in the budget because it'll impact the budget. We'll have some revenue coming in. The expense will be the projects. We'll pay for it over 30 years or something at 2%. And that'll increase our cash position. It'll increase our debt position. So we're back to, balancing those things out. But it's a good thing. 2% is cheap money. So I'm excited.
Good.
So, will that be, because we need to approve that, right?
Not yet. I just had to give them, because they're coming up to their end of their fiscal year, I had to give them an indication if we were going to take advantage of this, and I said yes.
But the board has to approve it, right?
The board has to approve something later on to
Well,
really nail it down.
because it's good to apply for a grant, but to apply for a loan for $6 million, that's just like, oh, wait, what? That seems a little foreign to me.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
You will have to approve all the contracts. You'll have to approve a bunch of documents. So the board will have an opportunity to not do this, and that will create, and that means the board will also have an opportunity to know at a very detailed level what you're committing to.
Right.
I'm just announcing that we were
Here's the opportunity.
awarded,
Yeah.
and that rather than tell them, and they didn't need board approval, but they needed something from somebody here at Township Hall.
Right.
Because if we weren't going to take it, they'll give it to somebody else. No
But-
harm, no foul.
Right.
I said, yes, we'll take it,
Right. Yeah.
and we can decline it later.
Right. Okay.
All good? Final board member comment?
I'm
Trustee Brown?
all set tonight, thank you.
Trustee Lannon?
Actually, I got a couple questions. One, I was just wondering, is the township involved in any way in an opioid settlement monies? I came across the article that kinda talked about that and said Union Township.
We are. We've been involved since it first came out in 2020, I think. Walgreens, Kroger, the whole list. And why this one made the paper so much, I'm not sure. We receive, I think, about $90 a year. So
It's in the
that's
budget.
never why I bothered you all with
Yeah.
it.
I missed that.
When it first came out, I didn't know what we might get. So we have our portals and our, we receive, one time I think the payment was $7.12, something like that. And so, yes, we are.
Okay.
And what we do with the money is I just simply give it to the county. Because they have a program, it's their bailiwick, we're not gonna start up an opiate interdiction
With our
program.
$6.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Also, wonder, do we have a wage, I'll call it just a wage study, I know it's a broader title, in process
We do,
currently?
and they are in the middle of getting data back from their comparables. So that puts us pretty much through the grunt work of the project.
Okay,
I hope to have that result back by the time we're negotiating.
okay. As my questions, my only comment is, Union Township's looking pretty nice in the colors of fall.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely beautiful around here. Thank you.
Trustee Lee?
I've got nothing.
I'm good.